What's up, party people? Welcome to Wednesday's OmniBros Live. We got a full house. Look at that. We got all kinds of. We got a side with no hair, and we got a side with all kinds of hair. So the ratio is pretty even when it comes down to follicles at the moment. I am the bald one. Gabe loves 90s comics. Below me, we got my boy Lou.
Hello.
Caddy corner here for me. We got Omnipup. We got my boy Jake. And
Hey,
we
guys.
got the one and only Galactus Eats Butt Cracks.
That's me.
I love it. I love
What
it.
up, everybody? We're here. We were sitting in the back talking about Crispin Wall and all the good things he did.
Oh
I
my
didn't
god.
know who he was, so they gave me a crash course.
Literally, it's a crash course. Oh god.
It's also a crash course on how to improperly use the lat pull down bar.
And take a steel chair to the head. Well, you remember what Crispin Wall's finisher was, right? It was that flying headbutt.
Yeah.
That was his finisher.
It was flying CTE.
Pretty much it was flying CTE. I think they even warned him after a while, dude, you need to stop doing this. It's probably not good for you. And Crispin Wall just kept doing it. Oh god. You know, Crispin Wall, though, in his prime, an amazing wrestler. Fantastic wrestler. Great in the ring. And when he was the tag team with him and Eddie Guerrero, great tag team. Just legendary stuff, man. God. I sent you, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, Gabe. I sent you the doc on Eddie Guerrero's life. Man, what a crazy life he had.
I haven't gotten a chance to see that yet. But you know what else is incredible, great, and fantastic, and amazing, and legendary? The one and only InStockTrades.com. That's right. So if this is your first time here on the show, or if you've been here before, you need to know about InStockTrades.com. That is our number one go-to spot for all of our collected edition needs. Trade paperbacks, hardcovers, omnibuses, epic collections, every form of collected editions we get through InStockTrades.com because they got the best prices. 35% up to 50%. If you go to that red tag sale, you're going to see 70% discounts, all kinds of crazy wackiness, awesome prices there. Also, free shipping in the United States on all qualified orders that are $50 or more. $50, you pay $50, you get automatic free shipping, which is saying a lot. Shipping is really expensive these days. Prices are going up. They do have the best packaging. I save that packaging and I use it for later if I sell stuff or if I move. They give you a 2% extra discount on your next order. So you make an order, make another order right away, and you get 2% off. It's good for about a week. Awesome prices. They've been sponsoring us for 3 billion years. It feels like it's been forever. InStockTrades.com. They also, sometime in a month, they'll sponsor us and give us a $50 gift card to give out to some lucky person. Might be you. Might be you. Not you. You smell funny, but it might be you. Might be you too. So that's InStockTrades.com, everyone.
I like fishing their damage section because you can get even better discounts if like a book. They say damage, but the book comes in perfect condition. So
yeah. Oh no, the cellophane's ripped, or
yeah,
some nitpicky person in the back for some reason. Yeah, I'm sure there's been a lot of that before. I'm sure somebody on this panel has more experience than others. So wrestling, we're just going to shoot the shit today. But we start off. We really need to figure out. We need to just record these green room conversations and put those online somehow too.
Oh my god, put those on the Patreon. No, some of our best conversations happen off the air. We could not. We not that we're filtered when we're on the air, but we kind of tone it down a little bit when we're on the air. In the green room, it's fair game a lot of times. Some of the stuff we talk about.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't have clothes on in the green room, so
that's true. That's our casting couch.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they made me do that. That when I said I wanted to be an OmniBros, they said, "Okay, well, here's the leather couch, here's the camera. Show me what you got."
You want to be a star, don't you?
Yeah. Oh my god! I just remember that Family Guy skit with Mickey Mouse, with Minnie Mouse or whatever it was.
Oh man, I was thinking of just Harvey Weinstein.
Oh god,
I was thinking about the I don't know how familiar y'all are with Workaholics, but the episode where they go to the college and Blake has to like gets drawn in to do the porno.
Oh yeah, I
Really
love
love
Workaholics.
They like turn Adam against pornog, as they called it, and he started getting really upset. And then he went in there and was assuming that like the girl was the one being taken advantage of. And then she was like, "No, dude, I'm a producer on this." And Blake's the one sitting there like wrapped up in a blanket, like crying and stuff.
That show's fantastic. I remember the first episode was just like the site-wide drug test.
Oh yeah.
So they had to, because they were all doing drugs. The
Yeah.
workaholic characters, they had to break in and just peed in like everybody's cup. And they were like, "Who takes Dayquil and NyQuil?"
I just finished rewatching the series again. That's my like. People are like, "Oh, I rewatch The Office whenever I'm bored." Like I rewatch Workaholics.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that show.
Is it really that good?
Awesome.
Is it really that good? I've never seen it.
Dude, it's fantastic, dude.
It's so
It's
good.
if you like Sunny in Philadelphia, you'll like that, but it's a lot smaller. Like it's just 3 dudes in a house. It's like,
And you like That's What We Do in the Shadows. The same writer, Kyle Newacek.
Really?
He's a writer and director on What We Do in the Shadows, and he's like one of the creators along with the 3 main dudes.
he's like the 4th guy of the show. Like he's
He's
the
like
fourth guy.
their drug dealer, right?
Yeah,
The guy that lives in the van kind of guy. Yeah.
he's also like a director of most of the episodes and writer of most of the episodes.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Like that and like The League, I put like in the same kind of category of just like
Man,
small budget, hilarious comedy.
Oh my god, The League is.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
No, The League when it was on was one of the funniest shows at the time. I'm not even a sports guy, and every time I'd watch The League, I would die laughing.
Well, it's a show about guys in their like football league, right? Or like their fantasy football, but it's not about that. Like there's small segments of it of them talking about their picks or the game or whatever. But mainly it's other just random stuff that happens to them. Yeah. And Andre's the best.
Like, until the end of the season when it's like all about who won, and then they have to see who gets the Shiva for that.
Shiva. I look what's his name? El Cuñado?
El Cuñado, yeah.
Oh shit! No, the League is fantastic. That's I think we haven't had too many like raunchy comedy shows like that in the last few years, right? What would you say is probably in the last few years something like that we've had? Gemstones.
I just
Gemstones was good. Oh, they casted Danny. They hired Danny McBride to be the writer for the Booster Gold movie, so I feel like that's going to be great.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
I haven't heard about that, but wow.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that.
Behind the Righteous Gemstones and Danny McBride are going to be writing Booster Gold, so I'm like, they're going for it.
Listen, if Baby Billy is Booster Gold, I am so in on that.
I feel like
please give us Walton Goggins as somebody in the DCU.
Walton Goggins as Baby Billy playing Booster Gold would be incredible, and I would love that.
What if Walton Goggins played Skeets, his little robot?
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Oh my god! For those of you that have never seen Righteous Gemstones, after this, please go on HBO and watch Righteous Gemstones. It's one of those shows that I don't think it gets enough love, because it is so great. And Walton Goggins is the best thing about that show. He plays one of the most despicable but hilarious characters named Baby Billy. Oh my god, the show is so good. It's John Goodman, Danny McBride, Walton Goggins, a whole bunch of other people in the cast. And it basically centers around this megachurch pastor and his horrible and shitty family. If you grew up around a megachurch like I did, it's not that far from the reality of some of the mega churches that I've been.
Go outside, nerd. Get out. Go. I ain't got time to be distracted by your worthless chime-ins. Go on.
It's not that far from some of the mega churches that I've been to, namely a church called City of Life that I went to in Orlando. And just how some of the behind-the-scenes stuff work, and how some of the people that are in front of people, thousands of people on the pulpit, are really like behind the stage. It's such a great show.
I have because out here in Houston we have like Osteen and Ed Young and like all these huge dudes that like exactly what they are on the show. And like my grandmother was like the one who would watch like Dr. Ed Young every weekend on the TV. Meanwhile, the people who actually work with him are like, that guy is like, he is Satan. He is the worst person I've ever known. Which is the truth behind most of those huge mega church pastors and stuff, honestly.
Wasn't there a whole thing with Olstein where there was a plumbing guy that he was cleaning up the place and stuff like that, and he found like $10 million or something like that stored away in the wall?
It was just 10 million. We all have $10 million stored away, right?
I don't think it was that. I think it was like 300,000 or something, but it was like behind the tiles behind a toilet or something.
Yeah, that's what we call bug out money. Okay, so when the feds come, you break that wall and then you flee the country.
That's what
he wouldn't open up his church during like some hurricane, right? Like it was like brand new church, and he wouldn't open it up.
Didn't want to get the 300,000 wet.
Meanwhile, homeboy Mattress Mac from Gallery Furniture is like, "Come on in, I got beds everywhere."
I remember that. That was a huge thing, man. Where he refused to open up the church for people, and people were like, "No, we're out homeless right now. Our homes are flooded and stuff." And he was like, "Nope, screw you, poors."
And it reminds me of the scene in Righteous Gemstones where he's like goes to get his daughter out of holding, and he like gives them money and stuff. And before that, like he's talking about like not wanting to get the cops involved because he's like, then they'll start to like basically try to audit the church. Right. And he's like, we don't want them looking into our books. And it's John Goodman, whose character is like, thus far as I've watched about the whole first season, is like at least the most like upstanding of them, like on the surface. So like, you know, even he's sitting there saying stuff like he's not Danny McBride's character. Like John Goodman's sitting there like, don't let the authorities get involved or else they're going to start searching.
Well, John Goodman was the dad who kind of built it from the ground up.
Yeah.
And then Danny McBride and all them were like his spoiled ass kids that just grew up rich.
I feel like the daughter was the worst character. Like she was like the most grating to me.
Oh, she was great. But if you watch, it's because people in the chat are mentioning like Down and Out or Eastbound and Down, or even like Vice Principals.
Vice Principals was underrated.
Vice Principals, like that, his sister played like his love interest, and they were banging all the time. And then you watch versus Gemstones, and it's his sister. So I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy, but funny. Now
she was the one that he like was drunk and slept with in Vice Principals, and then woke up and was like, this is a mistake. And then she was like giving him a blowy in the back room of the school, and she's like, what do you mean it's a mistake? I just finished blowing you. You obviously liked it.
Oh, that clarity. I got a couple comic books this week.
What'd you get?
Okay, so first off, I don't know if you guys saw these, but I got the compact editions.
Oh, cool.
So I did a video comparing them to, because I have like every format of both of these books. They messed up and sent me 2 copies of them. So,
oh, awesome, man. How do you feel about them versus the original versions?
I think that, you know, people often complain that DC or like Western like media books don't take, you know, they don't learn from like what manga is doing well. And I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, they're definitely not meant for people who have collections like us. They're meant for like, hey, I'm at a Galactus book fair and I'm in 3rd grade and I have $10 and Batman's on the cover. Let me buy this book, you know, or I'm at like an airport, you know. So I think it's really cool. It's also like, I don't know, like the paper quality is better than I think they'd be, and they're full color, and on IST they're like $5.60 or something. So it's like just a tremendous value. So I'm positive of them. The next thing I'm really positive about, and kind of fits into our wrestling motif, is I got Transformers and read it and loved it. It's like every good thing you love about Daniel Warren Johnson just like turned up to 11. So there's wrestling and heartfelt moments and amazing art.
Yeah, because I think it was also like suplex somebody in that book.
Oh yeah, lots of robot wrestling. This is what I'm really excited about. I got the new Something Is Killing the Children deluxe edition. So This is my wife's favorite comic, so we're gonna read it together. And then lastly, the one that came in today is Secret Six. So I'm really excited. So I started reading that one already.
That's some good stuff there, man. You got a lot of good books there.
I went 2 months without buying a book, so I felt like this was the week to break my haul. And I didn't go crazy, you know. It's not enough photos to like make Reddit hate me again.
I remember that.
Oh, that's right, because you were like in like a slump for a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was in a slump, and then I
right.
bought a bike and a Steam Deck, and just ignored comics for about a month and a half. And now I'm like kind of tiptoeing back in. I kind of compared it to like being in a bad relationship where I was like obsessed with hauling and things like that, and doing reading for my YouTube channel and stuff, and I burnt out. And now we're meeting up for coffee again and talking, and it's like, hey, maybe we could do this thing again, but it would be better and healthier.
Yeah, man. With anything in life is balance is key, right? You know, sometimes you get burned out on the stuff you love, so you need to take a little bit of a break from it.
But be careful, because next thing you know, they're going to start moving stuff in their house.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like, oh, whose sweater is this? Wait, where does this blanket come from? Hey, this isn't my coffee table.
I like 00711's comment. Any 10-year-old at a Scholastic's book fair who picks up Watchmen is destined for great things, or to be horribly scarred for the rest of their life.
I read Watchmen at 13. That's when I first read it, and I did not know what I was getting into.
Teacher, I picked up the book with the blue dick.
Well, what's that clown? What's the comedian doing to that lady on the pool table?
Oh God, why'd you go there? Right?
That was way darker than it needed to be.
Oh, okay. That's way dark. Oh, what
they
the
wrestling?
Poor guy do to that Vietnamese pregnant lady?
Oh man, you were just bringing back memories of Watchmen.
What happens to that Egyptian kitty?
How come Night Owl's penis doesn't work?
Oh,
what happened to Barbados or whatever that cat's called? Babutos or whatever?
Babootsis? I can't remember
the zapped. Spoilers for Watchmen if anyone hasn't read it.
What's a prostitute, Dad? What's a prostitute? Because
who hasn't?
Mom's a prostitute.
Who hasn't read Watchmen at this point in the
what
chat?
What did Rorschach do to those dogs?
Why is that little man in prison trying to hurt Rorschach for?
What's NFL dude brings up a good thing. 10-year-olds have seen chocolate starfishes on TikTok. They can handle Preacher. What would be a worse book to give to your 10-year-old? Watchmen or Preacher?
Preacher. Probably Preacher.
Probably Preacher. Yeah. There's a lot of inbreed.
What is all like inbred hillbillies and stuff in it, and like
because it's
homeboy gets like a penis drawn on his forehead.
It's more for the depravity of things. Whereas Watchmen is a lot more serious about it. So like while it goes into the dark topics, it treats them more respectfully than like Preacher is just like trying to, everything's an affront to God because God's not there.
Or how crazy can Garth Ennis get? Like, oh, let's put young Jesse Custard in a coffin and then fill it up with rocks and throw him in the bottom of the lake for like weeks.
God,
I learned the hard way not to, because I was explaining Preacher to my co-host on a live stream, and I wanted to explain Arseface, so I like Googled an image I Googled Arseface to like show him what he looked like. It was not what you want to do on a live stream.
See,
Derek knows what's up though. Give him crust.
Oh no. See, the thing is with Preacher though is that I think Preacher strikes a really solid balance of Garth Ennis. You can get a Garth Ennis that just goes way too childish, and I'm like, or you can get a Garth Ennis that knocks it out of the park for me. Really max. Preacher has a solid balance of that really raunchy, dirty childhood comedy and really good moments, especially when you start getting towards the end and you start really Jesse and Cassidy really hash out their relationship in a really big moment towards the end of the book, and everybody kind of gets their redemption.
Yeah, it's definitely it has a lot more of those actual like mature moments and those like actual like emotional beats than some of his other ridiculous pieces.
Yeah.
Which is I think why I loved it so much, because it was like I love potty humor and I love all of that stuff, like homeboy licking shit off of his arm at that one party. Like I love that. But it also has the story beats and the emotion and stuff that kept me coming back.
Yeah. There's the inbred Jesus, the where they try to keep Jesus. Humperdoo. Oh God. And how he dies, just that huge fat guy just falls out of the helicopter.
Is it All Father, I think, or High Father or something?
The All Father. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Preacher is a series that I've read more times than I can count. And I love it even more I'm due for a reread because it's been, God, it's got to be over 5-6 years since I've read Preacher again. So I'm way past due for a reread.
I haven't read all of Preacher before, and I was
Really?
reading it not too long ago, and then everybody was talking about they wanted to read Superior Spider-Man. I stopped, and then I got lost. I got to get back to Preacher.
So you've never finished it? You don't know how it ends?
I don't know how it ends. I think I made it through like the first like 2 hardcovers.
It's worth it to get to the ending. It ends very well. It's got a.
I'm sure. I know it's a fantastic book. I do need to finish reading it for sure.
I wish I hadn't watched the TV show when I was younger before I read the books.
You'll be fine. The TV show deviates so much, especially that first season.
That first season was like it wasn't even like the first episode, the first issue.
No, it's not. The first season is actually kind of a prequel to the first issue, and that's kind of where they went wrong for a lot of the hardcore fans. But I have heard that later seasons get much better, and it follows the
later seasons. Because I haven't read all of Preacher, but I've read at least take 2/3 of it. But I watched the full show, and it gets way more accurate.
Yeah, but what's a book that you guys? What's a book or a series that you guys have read countless times and you've lost track? And you just kind of keep coming back to it. It could be comfort food. It could be anything like that.
I don't have time to reread things anymore. I have like 100 volumes of manga that come in every month, and a lot of them like I have to read to do preview stuff. So
I envy you because I wish I had the time for that. I don't have it.
I don't sometimes understand how I find the time to do it because I'm working all day, and then family stuff, friends, but I figure it out, I guess.
Probably like Watchmen or Batman Hush is usually like my go-to. If I'm like, I just want to read something.
Okay.
Comfort food,
I've read Watchmen a bunch, but I wouldn't call that one specifically comfort food. But like New Frontier or Batman by Loeb and Sale are like the ones I reread the most times. Like New Frontier is, I think, everything great about DC, so I read that about once a year. And then Long Halloween and Dark Victory I read often.
New Frontier is incredible. I absolutely adore that book.
That's one that I thought should have been a compact edition. I feel like that's such a classic evergreen story that like that for $10 in full color would be such a value.
I can see it happening. I can see that.
They've only announced the first like 2 waves, so my hopes for those compact editions. I put this on Twitter the other day, but when people started getting them in hand, I hope that DC has these marketed and put in not just bookstores and comic shops, but in like big box retailers like Target and Walmart. Because Target and Walmart, not so much now, but like they were doing a lot of manga sales. And then actually advertising, like pushing ads and stuff and making sure that people know that they're out there. But I have to hope that they don't screw the pooch on this line like they have with so many others in the past and just let it fall.
Mm-hmm.
I get excited every time I go to Target now and I see their little comic book section. Like they started getting some like exclusive like standard size hardcovers. So they had like their own cover of the sequel to Last Ronin. They were the only place to get the hardcover of the Tom King, Mitch Gerald, Batman Joker origin story, the winning card from the anthology series. So like I'm excited that there's some comic book presence there, but it does need to go to places besides a comic book shop because I think it's not meant for them.
Yeah, no. It's not meant for the crowd that's already like the people who are going to the comic shop are like probably 80% people who already have read these stories. Like they don't need these editions. The other 20% are the people who wander in because they're like, ooh, a comic shop, and they're probably just going to look at like toys.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, I bet it's like Big Bang Theory. But the thing is, dude, that happens. You'd be surprised how often that happens.
That's why I'm laughing because I'm pretty sure it probably happens a lot more than I think.
Yeah, but not every town has a comic book store.
No,
and it might not be. If it does have a comic book store, it might not be a comfortable one to get into. So Targets and Walmart's, big box stores like that's definitely a good idea to get more comics out, and that's definitely what propped up a lot of the manga too. Yeah,
they're pulled out now though. Like if you go, it seems like they carry maybe a couple of volumes of manga now, like a couple series. But it used to be like a whole shelf or whole case,
Yeah.
lined with all the popular, mostly like Shonen Jump titles and some Kodansha stuff.
And they always had like that special section of like higher end toys. There was always a lot of like manga based toys too. It was a lot of like Naruto, Demon Slayer stuff, things like that too.
Riley probably is the only one in this group that remembers that. Do you remember Tokyopop? What happened with that? What happened with that line?
I can tell you everything on that.
Okay, when we were kids, that was huge. It was a massive line, right?
Yeah, Tokyopop was originally a German publisher. They were leading the manga revolution was their tagline back in like the early 2000s. And they had a lot of licenses for big series from Kodansha in Japan. Series including Rave Master, Initial D, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, Samurai Deeper Kyo. In 2009, for reasons that I've never found a specific answer to, Kodansha Japan decided to pull all of their licenses from Tokyopop. So given that the publisher was really relying on those as their big sellers, they shut down operations in the US. Kodansha wound up forming Kodansha Comics US, and then fed most of the most of their stuff now goes to that publisher, but some of the things got fed to other places like Del Rey Comics and Vertigo, et cetera, et cetera. Vertigo is now part of Kodansha as well, though. So Tokyopop disappeared in the US, and then they slowly over the next few years, I think in like 2012, they started to make a comeback and they made a deal with Disney to start publishing Disney graphic novels. And then in the past several years, I think right before pandemic hit, they really started to make more of a comeback around 2018, 2019. And so now they are back in the game. Tokyopop exists again, but they are primarily publishing either Disney manga or they focus a lot on their line called Love Love, which is it's romance focused, but it's mostly BL boys love and some GL girls love. So it's a lot of like they publish a very large amount of LGBTQ stuff.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
What their corner of the market is right now is a lot of that, and they're doing pretty well with it at this point. So you know they've come back, but they're just very much not the same Tokyopop that they were before.
Yeah, it's always
that was a fun history lesson.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me to see kind of the rise and fall of certain lines and stuff like that and what happened with them. I know Gabe has been pushing for years for what was that? What was the line again? From the 90s? Ultraverse. Gabe has been pushing for years for them to put out an Ultraverse omnibus, and it doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon. So there's a rich history of certain lines and certain publishing things starting and just getting shut down, and we never get that material back.
There's a lot of manga publishers that around the late 2000s just went up because of the economy at the time had crashed, and so a lot of smaller publishers disappeared, and some of them were like just getting started. So there's a lot of books that like you'll find just a few volumes of that were published in English. It kind of sucks. But speaking of things from the 90s and like late 80s, and we were talking about some Vertigo titles, did y'all see that Shade the Changing Man is finally getting an omnibus edition?
Well, that was like, yeah, they just randomly dropped it in their catalog without like any kind of announcement, and I feel like that was like super hyped. Like
that's probably what they're gonna do with Geo and the Inhumans omnibus. They're just gonna drop it.
We're never getting that Inhumans omnibus.
Omar's not even gonna announce it. He's just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, this thing's coming out." Yeah, I haven't heard about Shade the Changing Man. I don't who's that? I mean, I'm happy it's coming out, but I can't imagine, is the fervor really that big for?
There's a lot of people, and I say a lot, but it's like, you know, just
there's dozens of us.
Yeah, it's like seeing the consensus of people that were in small social circles on the internet, because you know it's a niche within a niche. But the entirety of that series has never been collected before, so this is the first time. The first volume will go through issue 41 out of 70, and only the first 19 have ever been collected before. So the second volume is likely to not just cover the rest of it, like 42 through 70, but also I am assuming the Milligan written issues of New 52 Justice League Dark that also had Shade, and the 3-issue Secret 7 from Flashpoint that had Shade Changing Man as the main character. So that should even it out a little bit. But it's cool because that was one of the remaining like big like proto Vertigo titles, like the ones like, you know, Animal Man, Swamp Thing,
Right.
Sandman, that were not part of Vertigo when they started and then eventually became part of it. Shade was one of those, and I think like there's not a lot of those classic ones remaining. Did the Dreaming get announced for an omnibus, or are we still waiting on that?
That's like the side Sandman stuff. I feel like that.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm looking right now. I don't think it has been. That might be like the biggest remaining one that has not gotten an omnibus announcement.
I'm excited because I'm only a collected editions reader. So because Shade has never been collected fully, I've never read it before. So, and I love me some Vertigo stuff.
It is kind of crazy that Vertigo, it's known as kind of a prestigious line for creator-owned works and stuff like that. But if you look at its history when it originally started, like Riley pointed out, Vertigo started as an offshoot of DC Comics. A lot of DC Comics. You had Swamp Thing, you had Animal Man, and those started in the mainline DC, but then eventually they shifted over to Vertigo. And I think, man, I miss Vertigo so much. I miss classic Vertigo because Vertigo was the line, man. It was, you got a Vertigo run and you did 60 issues of it, it meant something. It
Back
was,
in like the late 90s, early 2000s, my pull list was basically Marvel stuff, Batman, and like almost everything Vertigo.
yeah. I remember when they announced that they were shutting the line down, I just went, oh my gosh, why? I mean, I know before they shut the line down, they were having some trouble. You know, a lot of the titles that they were putting out really weren't hitting and stuff like that. And just the catalog alone and its history is so rich. I mean, you had titles on Vertigo such as Why the Last Man, Animal Man, Swamp Thing, Transmet, Preach, just incredible books that catalog had.
That it used to be like in the early 90s, that Image Eye was like a guaranteed big seller.
Yeah.
Then it was like that Vertigo logo. So it had the Vertigo logo on it, 100 Bullets, Scalped, Transmet, whatever it was, I picked it up for sure.
Yeah, because you were usually getting a good book.
Oh, you knew that there was definitely a seal of quality, that Vertigo.
Absolutely.
I'm also excited for that Scalped omnibus.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be cool.
And a lot of writers cut their teeth in Vertigo. That's really where they got their big blow up moment. Neil Gaiman, I would argue Sandman was the thing that really blew him up in the spotlight. Grant Morrison was around that time, wasn't he?
I would say that those books were also like their main books.
Was
like Warren Ellis had never topped Transmet.
I
don't think Garth Ennis could ever top Preacher.
Was Doom Patrol before or after Animal Man? Because I feel like Doom Patrol is kind of when.
I think it's after.
It was, I believe, started a year after they started Animal Man.
Yeah. Did Morrison have did he have Arkham Asylum before Animal Man, or was that after?
I believe that was
after. I think that was after.
Let me look into the bibliography.
You know, and Animal Man, because I love Animal Man. I think Grant Morrison's Animal Man is one of the greatest runs of all time. I just love how it slowly starts getting weirder and weirder and weirder until you get to the big moment. I can't ruin it for anybody that hasn't read Animal Man, but there's a huge moment where the character just turns around. And if you've read it, you know what that moment is.
Yeah, I literally have it on the back of my shirt right now. Oh, that exact scene. So I'm ruining it for everyone when I go out.
Karen Berger is definitely like the mama bear of the Vertigo line.
Yeah.
So yeah, Animal Man was first, and then Doom Patrol like soon thereafter, and then Arkham Asylum was in '89, which I think was around. They might have been doing all of these at the same time.
I'm excited for that Absolute to come back into print this year. That's one of only 2 Absolutes I don't have.
007 was Why the Last Man the last collected edition with DC Vertigo imprint, or was it Swamp Thing?
I don't know.
It's hard because it's like sometimes I'll have like volumes 1, 2, and 3 of say an Absolute Edition. It's like Vertigo, DC Black Label, DC, and it just like flip flops all the time.
Yeah, those are like probably reprints. But I have it must be Swamp Thing because Vertigo or Why the Last Man, all three of those absolutes came out before Swamp Thing did.
I think volume 1 was Vertigo, and then the next 2 were Black Label.
You know
For
what?
For Swamp Thing, I don't think 2 and 3 were Vertigo, right?
For Swamp Thing?
Yeah, Absolute Swamp Thing. I think it was
Probably.
I think they're Black Label for 2 and 3.
You know what kills me is I had those little hardcovers for Swamp Thing with the original coloring and the kind of the old school paper stock. I eventually ended up selling them, and now the Absolute editions came out with the recoloring, and the recoloring is just, I think, horrible. I hate the recoloring on that book.
It's unfortunate.
That was the reason I didn't pick up the absolutes. I'm gonna go get just the regular trade paperbacks or something to have the old school paper and the old school coloring on it.
Yeah,
I like the Sandman recoloring. I thought that was done pretty well, but I guess most of these stories I read for the first time with the new coloring. So,
well, the Sandman recoloring, they did it right. They kept enough of the tone, and whoever did the recoloring on it, the team that did it, they were respectful to the material. They butchered Swamp Thing because the thing is with the original coloring of Swamp Thing is it was really evocative of a certain tone and a certain mood, and they recolored it to the point where I feel like it lost a lot of the original intent.
It went from being coloring that made things have a surreal tone to it to being more of like a natural type of tone with like natural greens and browns. And it's like if you read it for the first time like that, you're going to be like, oh, it's fine. But if you go and you see the original coloring, it's like, oh, shit, like this is super psychedelic in the way that it's presented and just like vibrant in so many cool ways.
That's a weird run. That's another one where Alan Moore already had it. Well, no, did Alan Moore? I think Swamp Thing was the thing that broke Alan Moore, wasn't it? Really, that was one of his first things in comics, like to really break him out, right?
I think he might have done Superman before that.
Was it before that?
I thought Swamp Thing was what got him started really in American comics.
It could be. I can check on that too.
Because Bernie Wrightson and Len Wein, they were originally the ones that started the line out, right? And then issue, I want to say 18, I think it was their last issue. And then Alan Moore comes into the book and recontextualizes the entirety of Swamp Thing's origin, where originally you thought, oh, Alex Holland, he got turned into Swamp Thing, the whole chemical bath and everything like that. And you end up finding out, no, that's not exactly what happened. It's basically Alex Holland is dead, and Swamp Thing is literally a plant that because of the comics, because of the chemicals, manifested itself into this being. And then it gets even deeper into it where you get involved into the green and what that means and everything. And Alan Moore did so much with this book.
Yeah, y'all are right. It was in 84 he started writing Swamp Thing, and then 85 was the first Superman that he did.
I know it's sacrilegious, but I still like the new coloring. I mean, I'm a fan. I was a fan reading it. It was my first time. Kick me out. But at least I'm sticking by my guns and I'm being authentic,
I hate this recall.
At least it's sacrilegious.
Yeah. I was just happy the spine on my Absolute was okay because the first printing of that first volume of the Swamp Thing Absolute was like a brutal spine. Like you just flip a coin and you got lucky or not.
Let me see here. Here's another example. Yeah, I gotta just get the trades of it when it comes out.
I have the box set.
That's something to go for. Value. Yeah, look at the moodiness on like the original coloring compared to what's on the right here. Like the big bright red airplane. No, give me that one that's all muckety and stuck in the swamp looking one.
Yeah,
I feel like he doesn't even look green in that first picture though.
It's green. He's just, it's swamp green and not booger green.
It's muted, but
I just think they overblew it. I think they overblow the colors out way too much on the restoration.
I mean, it wasn't as bad as like that Neil Adams Batman stuff.
No, God.
It's bad if Jess says something bad about it. Like,
yeah,
rarely says anything bad about things.
Jess is usually the most forgiving out of all of us with a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, okay, man. So if Jess says it's not good, it's really not good.
Neil Adams' artwork is not, in my opinion, great with modern inking and coloring. You have to have a very specific colorist working with Adams for it to really look good now. It's the same kind of issue that you have with like John Romita Jr. now. Like a lot of modern makes his look terrible because there's too much dimension put on things that are not drawn to have that kind of dimension.
And the thing is, John Romita Jr., if you look at his Daredevil stuff, it's great.
Yeah.
It looks great. Anatomically, it looks fantastic. Everything looks great. You look at his Spider-Man stuff recently, and I'm like, oh no, John Romita Jr. I love your classic work, man, and I'm sure you're a sweet guy, but no.
So yeah, it looks like Volume 1 has a DC Vertigo, and then it's DC on 2 and 3.
And they reprinted it to have it with the DC logo on there, and then everyone went wild trying to make sure that if they ordered a copy, it was the right one.
Yeah, I have so many absolutes where the logos do not match, and I just try not to look at it. You know,
it's never affected me. It would never hurt my feelings if I don't have the right logo.
Yeah.
The ones that do bother me are like the Bendis to Brubaker Daredevil Omnis, where they change the font of Daredevil once, or like the Avengers Hickman, where the A's are supposed to align and they don't align. That just feels kind of lazy and like shoddily done. When
Yeah, but it still reads amazing. That's where I'm at. As long as I can still read it and not terrible coloring that burns my face.
I really appreciate in regards to like the design, like the of the copy, I guess, for specifically the Kodansha manga. They changed their logo several years ago from like a triangle with the Kodansha on it to this like square that has a K in it, like a design square. But every series that was being published prior to the logo change, even the newest volumes published now like 4 years later, retain the old logo. So
that's cool.
It's pretty neat. And like, but if they re-release it, like for instance, Seven Deadly Sins, single volumes, they retained the old triangle logo, but when they re-released it in omnibus editions, those had the square on it. So like they'll retain it for the series unless it gets re-released. And I don't know, it's something that like makes sense, and it's a little thing that counts, and it's something that like it doesn't really impact me because I have like so many series that I collected back when they first started getting published, like Hunter x Hunter. I have like the first print of volume 1, and those logos have changed multiple times throughout. It never really bothers me, but I know it does a lot of people, and it's really nice to have those logos line up and stuff.
I've got a question for you, Gabe, because I was thinking about this today. Do you feel that the comics that were in the 90s that in the mid 2000s didn't get the respect they deserved are now finally getting the respect that they deserve? And why haven't things like Ultraverse been published and brought back again? Because clearly there's an audience out there that really enjoys this stuff. I mean, we've seen proof of it. If it's done well, the audience will come back to it. Things like X-Men 97 have shown that if you treat it with respect and you do it well, the fans will follow it.
Well, I think in terms of like 90s and 2000 books getting their respect, I think that's almost everything. It takes like 20 years for it to kind of come back around and for people to realize like, oh, that's actually like really good stuff. Music the same way, TV shows, movies. It always seems to take like a 20-year like marination period or whatever, Because everybody is so dialed into what they like currently, right? Like, or when you were a kid, like everybody's always kind of dialed into that. And same with me. It took me a while to realize like the 70s stuff is really good. Like Bronze Age comics are really good. Now that I've been reading like Chris Claremont's X-Men, it's like, okay, this stuff is really super wordy. A lot of stuff happens. One issue of like X-Men from Chris Claremont would have been like a 12-issue arc today, if not more, right? So I think it just, for whatever reason, what it is, it seems to be like this 20-year kind of shift for that stuff to kind of get familiarized. And at the same time, there's a lot of hate for 90s comics. In the 90s, in the 2000s, like, it was always kind of bashed for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And then it just, people started realizing like there's some really great stuff in there with the help of, I say, like X-Men 97. Right, that helped people with the idea of like Wolverine get the adamantium pulled out of him. So those issues started to blow up, and that '90s X-Men stuff started getting some respect with Bastion and Operation Zero Tolerance and things like that. So there's always that kind of reflection of like a 20 years past.
Okay,
Ultraverse. I have no idea why they're not putting out the Ultraverse stuff. It's not the Ultraverse guys who owned Ultraverse and ran Ultraverse. They said the contracts are the same as any other contract that there is today. That you don't really have to pay the creators anymore if it becomes a movie or a TV show, or if you republish it as like an omnibus or collected editions. They get paid the same amount that they would have, that any other creator today, Hickman, whomever, when their stuff goes into trades, it's basically the same pay scale. So it's not like, oh, there's special contracts because they have ownership for it and things like that. Now, maybe with the movies, it might be different if it turned into a movie. But I think from my understanding, they said it wouldn't be that much of a big difference.
Okay.
But so I have no idea. Marvel has the full capability to reprint all of that Ultraverse stuff. But really, they already own it. Like, there's no like having to repay or republish or any of that stuff. They have it all. So it's just they don't want to do it. They probably don't think there's an audience for it, because it's me and like 12 other people who care about Ultraverse.
Well,
But we'll probably get Ultraverse before we get Inhumans. Haha, Gio.
part of the reason that I'm asking this is because I've kind of seen this resurgence for a lot of writers and artists from the 90s that used to kind of get shit on in the mid 2000s, maybe mainly Rob Liefeld, in the comic book circles, where people, now it kind of seems like people have turned around on him, where the foot joke thing, it's overplayed at this point. Oh yeah, I can't draw feet. Okay, the joke's done. But he's even leaning into it now, and we see that kind of with the Deadpool stuff and everything like that in the movie and everything. And it seems like the audience has kind of shifted that, hey, we used to kind of shit on guys like Rob Liefeld, and to a certain extent, even a little bit of Joe Mad's art style, which I always loved Joe Mad's art style. Mm-hmm. I loved it in the video games and stuff that he put out. But it's kind of going, no, we're the guys now, because I think also part of it is that we are the generation that's keeping the comic industry afloat, right? We've said this before. I don't think too many kids these days are reading comics that much anymore. Kids are reading more manga, stuff like that. So it's a lot of us that grew up in the 90s and the 80s, and we're like, yeah, man, I really had a fondness for Wildcats, or I really had a fondness for Grifter and all that stuff that Image was doing back in the early days and things like that. So it kind of seems like the perspective has shifted a little bit. I'm completely out of the loop as far as collected editions. Have they put out something for Wildcats in the last?
There is an absolute that's been put out.
And a compendium.
And the compendium's on the way out. Yeah.
Okay. So
I've seen a.
Sorry, man. So last thing I'll say is just I hope, my mindset is, why not lean into that stuff more? Why not put out the Ultraverse stuff? Why not dip into that back catalog from the 90s that's a little bit more obscure, but it's probably got diehard fans?
If you're an Ultraverse fan, like, you're a diehard guy. Yeah. Like, you don't just kind of, I kind of like Ultraverse. Like, you're kind of into it because it's such a niche, right? It's a niche of a niche. It's a dead universe. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been anything good. Like, when Marvel bought out Ultraverse and they were doing like Ultraverse characters and titles kind of in the Marvel universe, but not really in the Marvel universe. Yeah. Like, that stuff is really kind of clunky and hard. But the actual Malibu stuff, all that stuff's fantastic. Like, there's so much unexplored, amazing comic books in that line that people are just missing out. And things like Rob Liefeld, he's always been good. I mean, his 90s stuff, like his X-Force, his New Mutant stuff, like, it's always been really good. There was just some kind of backlash that happened because they took over the industry. They bankrupt Marvel. They didn't bankrupt, but they left Marvel and left them hanging. So there was a lot of just like negative energy purposely put on to like those comics, and that era in general really just got browbeat. And if it's always kind of the consensus, it's kind of a Mandela effect of none of these comics are bad because I've always heard they were bad.
Yeah. Yeah, he became kind of the whipping post boy, right, for that stuff, right? It was, 90s comics are terrible, Rob Liefeld can trophy, right? It got to the point where it was so played out that even basic comic book fans are like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah. So
my problem with Rob has always been more that he's just a liar about everything. Like, and I called him out about it, and then he disagreed with me, and then he had a bunch of his like Twitter people go after me, and that was not the most fun day.
Oh, that's not cool.
Like he didn't have them go after me, but like they did, because that's what happens when that kind of discourse happens. So I just blocked him on the Twitter.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I called him out because he's like, I am Deadpool's creator, and I was like, you're his co-creator. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm his creator. And I'm like, so Fabian is just chopped liver? Like Fabian Nicieza does not exist, I guess. And he's like, no, I'm his creator. And I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. But like Fabian will come out and like set everything straight whenever he needs to. And there's also all the stuff that like Wheezy has said about like, because he comes out and talks about the way that he created Cable, and then Wheezy will be like, that none of that's true. Like nothing that he's saying about the creation of Cable is true. They're like, he came up with a certain part of the design, but like the character and like the stories and stuff were all Simonson. So I really, that's what I don't like about Rob. Like his 90s art, whatever, his later artwork, I am definitely not a fan of, but it's just his personality is so grating to me that like I'll lean against his work as well because of it.
this is part of the reason why I just don't interact too much on my socials with people, just because I love that Keanu Reeves quote where he's like, I'm at a point in my life where if you say 1 + 1 is 5, I'm just not going to argue with you, because it's really just not worth it at this point anymore. Especially
I'm not here to change anybody's mind or try to be like, you're wrong in this aspect. Let me prove it to you and spend 5 minutes debating it with you, and it turns into a whole thing. Like, who cares?
I used to be that guy. I used to get into heated shit with people online, and you guys can attest to it. And now I don't give a shit. My life is, I'm not going to spend 3 hours of my life trying to argue with some jackass online who's probably behind a keyboard and doesn't even know anything.
My rule now is like, I'm never going to argue an opinion. If it's a fact, I will state that fact. And if the person feels like arguing against a fact, then they can argue with the wall, because I won't respond.
I don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Like I'm not going to argue with you about something that I know is true. I will tell you the truth. And if you decide to take it, then do. If you decide to disagree with it, then that's on you. And you can later find yourself as stupid because you did not take fact as fact. But I don't engage in argument at all. And it's funny because sometimes people will come back and be like, oh, you gave up, I won. And I'm like, who really won here? Like I left the conversation so much done and had such a great day, and now you're coming back to it, and I really could not care.
Yeah, you're still trying to like, research your answer to me about stuff. I'm having a good day.
Yeah, I'll heart the YouTube comment and move on. That's about the most energy I have.
I think this is coming from someone who has not read any Malibu or Ultraverse. I think what it really is going to take for that stuff to get collected is a writer coming in and doing stuff who is like you, Gabe, who loves that stuff, who is a huge fan of that stuff. Like, have a writer come in and start writing those stories and those characters again, and that's what it's going to take to see stuff collected.
Right.
That's all it's going to take, because that's what's happened like with a lot of those things. Like you were talking about the 90s X-Men stuff, but a lot of stuff came back in the 2010s from the 90s. Like you said, 20 years later, you had a lot of these concept stuff like Age of Apocalypse made a return in the 2010s. Onslaught made a return in the 2010s. Venom, of course, got really big again. Not that he was ever not big, but got huge with the Donny Cates run and stuff. And
Deadpool too, all that stuff. Yeah.
Deadpool starting in like '08 or something, it just ballooned until about 2015 when I guess the balloon burst. But all of those things, come back about 20 years later, and the publisher leans into it, and then that's when we got all of the collected editions, all the omnibus editions, all the reprints and stuff. And so I'm sure that's all it's really going to take, although that didn't really happen to cross-gen. Like cross-gen hasn't reappeared in the current publication, so that's kind of weird.
Maybe Mark Waid has something to do with it. I don't. Who knows?
Strange,
but
I Googled
it is a strange thing that to bring that stuff out of all things. Like that's the most like random. It's just like Ultraverse. It's like this dead universe. It was around for like 2 or 3 years. It's the strangest story with CrossGen. How they had to move, everybody had to move to Tampa, and they all had to work together in like a bullpen situation. Like,
jeez,
crazy. And it's just a dude that had money for no reason. And there was some excellent stuff that came out of there. There's a lot of big creators that their work sprung from there, like Greg Land and Jim Chung. So some good stuff in there. It's just weird that that's getting omnibus and not much of anything else that's dead, like Ultraverse.
Jonathan Hickman presents Ultraverse.
Dude, did Jonathan Hickman do like a Rune or like a Prime? I'm in, dude. But
Prime's
yeah,
really
that's what Riley takes. That's like Riley said, it takes somebody's gonna need to put like Rune or Prime or Sludge or somebody else in like a Marvel book or do like another mini series, and then it'd be, oh well, now there's some interest. Let's pump out all the omnibuses now.
Well, we've also seen that there's been countless times where they've taken an obscure character and really, sometimes even from the 90s and even farther back, and modernized the character and have done incredible runs. Mm-hmm. There was Prophet a few years ago that was fucking amazing, but almost nobody read it. There was Unknown Soldier before that, another fucking amazing book, but nobody read it. So we've seen great examples of it. If you get the right creative team and the right writer and the artist, and they have the right idea for a title, they can bring something back and modernize it enough where you could go, wow, this is really good stuff. This kicks ass. Sometimes, in some cases, most people don't even realize that it was a 90s title or something from farther back because it's so obscure and so far back that nobody remembers it. Prophet is another example. Prophet is a great example of this, actually. Prophet, when it was relaunched, kept the same numbering. What was it, 20-something, 15-something? I forgot the number.
36? I think that one was.
Right. When they relaunched Prophet a few years ago and ended the book, they didn't do a number 1. They kept it going.
Yeah.
And it was a totally different book. Like, if you read regular Prophet, like Stephen Platt Prophet, and then you go into that, you're like, what is this? Like, it originally was like a super soldier, and then it turns into like this world traveling, like spawning of worlds, like weird psychological craziness.
Yeah, Prophet was a book that I was campaigning hard for people around me. I was like, you got to read Prophet. You got to read Prophet. You got to read Prophet. And everyone was like, and I'm like, oh my God, you're missing out so much. And the thing is, with those first few issues with Prophet, there's very little to almost no dialogue. The artist is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that book.
Well, look at even recently, okay? G.I. Joe, Transformers, that stuff was dead in the water at IDW. Like, get back on Rob Liefeld real fast. When he did his Snake Eyes series, he said that the regular G.I. Joe series was like selling like 2,000 copies, something like that. Like, it was dead in the water. And now that it went over to Image, and you have like, Daniel Warren Johnson on it, Robert Kirkman, part of his company, it just shot up. Like, it's like the biggest thing right now is G.I. Joe and Transformers. Right. I mean, even at G.I. Joe Kickstarter is like over $2 million now. Right. And
credit where credit is due. I think,
and we peer pressured Jess into buying all the trade paperbacks.
I think part of the reason why that G.I. Joe line and that Transformers line and all that stuff is doing well is because Kirkman hired really proven and talented writers and artists to do the project. Because if he just hired Joe Schmo, who's unproven talent, not saying that they couldn't do the work, but Joshua Williamson, right? what's the dude's name? I'm having a brain fart right now. Sorry, guys. Daniel Warren Johnson.
Mhm.
These are proven names. These are guys that have really fantastic titles under their belt and have been working in the industry for years. I've been saying for years, Daniel Warren Johnson just needs the right project for him to become that next Al Ewing, where you attach him to Hulk and it's like, holy shit, this run is amazing. It's legendary, right? It's a run that you can hang your hat on. Everybody goes, you need to read this run if you like the Hulk.
And that's what it is. It just takes a good writer to bring that stuff back. Ultimate Spider-Man. Me and you love Ultimate Spider-Man with Hickman, right? The Spider-Man that's been out recently, like the Nick Spencer stuff, right? Nick Spencer. I haven't read it, so I'm not gonna this is my opinion, but everything I've ever heard about the last run, all the way since like Dan Slott left, is that it's kind of right? Nothing spectacular, nothing amazing, no pun intended. But Ultimate Spider-Man with Hickman, you get somebody that has a passion and a vision and an idea, and it soars. Same with like that Ultimates. That's another great book.
Yeah,
that just came out of nowhere. But it takes like you said, it takes somebody to come back, bring these characters back around, and do something with it, redesign it. Look at Blade. Blade's completely different from when he first showed up in Tomb of Dracula.
Yeah.
He was just a dude in like a leather jacket and like goggles. Now he's like Goth King.
With the mainline Spider-Man title, it just kind of feels right now that everybody's just waiting for them to finish up the run and just move on. We just want you to finish up your run and just move on and get somebody else on the book.
This is kind of a funny aside on that, but like the editor on Spider-Man posted a panel from the Spencer run and was like praising something about Nick Spencer's run, and then people were just going in on him, saying like, why are you like, you were the one that like drove Spencer off the book because you wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do, and then everyone like going in on him for basically making Zeb Wells shit the bed with his entire run currently because of all the like editorial mandated stuff that's happening. So like he's coming out there trying to like praise stuff that he had edited, and then people are just calling him out on it. It was hilarious. But it's true. Like all of these things that like Zeb Wells, like the majority of his run is all editorially mandated storylines that he is unfortunately has to put his name on. So to people who are not like, don't really know as much about the industry and how those things work, like they think Wells is persona non grata when it's actually the editor that has been on the book for such a long time that needs to be off of the Spider-Man books.
And a huge part of me feels really horrible for Wells. I keep getting, for some reason, Spencer and Wells mixed up in my head. A huge part of me feels really terrible for Wells because he seems like he's taking the brunt of this, when it does feel like a lot of stuff has been editorial decision, especially that Kamala Khan stuff where they killed her in the book for some reason.
Well, that was Kevin Feige that came in and said, "Hey, I don't ask for much of you guys in the publishing side of things, but can you somehow make Kamala Khan a mutant instead of an Inhuman?"
And I could smell that in like 50 miles away, dude. Because like,
well, what's coming?
As soon as that happened,
everybody called it. They're like, "Oh, she's gonna be back. She's gonna make her a mutant."
That's the whole thing, right? They released that post-credit scene or whatever it was on the TV show. Oh, she's a mutant, and everybody just goes tick, 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 tick. When's it gonna happen?
Yeah,
what's gonna happen in the comics? And sure enough, it happened in the comics. And I don't think necessarily the problem was that it happened in the comics. It's how it happened in the comics in the most backward ass, ham-fisted, shoehorn fucking way they could have made it happen.
And everybody knew this so forced. Everybody called it. They're like, "She's gonna be back. She'll be back like soon. They're not gonna kill her. She has a movie. She has another movie coming out. She has a TV show. She has a movie coming out. They're gonna bring her back, and they bring her back as a mutant." The
fact that people, there were legitimately people on Twitter that were getting angry about it, like angry that she's gone. And I was like, literally from the moment it was leaked that they were killing her off, I was like, y'all don't really think that she's going to be away for like more than 6 months. And I don't even think it was 6 months.
No, it was like the next issue.
That's at most.
Within like I feel like a few days, maybe a couple weeks after it happened, or maybe even before it actually happened in the comics, they were like, oh, and what's her name? Iman Vellani is going to be co-writing her upcoming miniseries. It's like they hadn't even gotten around to letting people mourn the character's death. And
the body was not even cold on the ground before they went, yeah, we're just going to reboot the title.
She hadn't even stopped breathing.
And it was like the most ham-fisted death, too, where like Spider-Man's holding her and crying. Like, what are you talking about? Why does Spider-Man care?
Now,
Where did this come from?
Credit where credit is due. I have heard Iman Vellani's run is not bad. It's actually pretty good. That she's actually writing.
I like her. She seems like she's a fun actress. She's really energetic, and she got a lot of high spirits.
Yeah. She knows her shit.
She's the one that called Feige out today. You can't call the movie universe 616.
Yeah.
So
she's great.
The mainline Spider-Man line just feels like everybody's okay, get the next guy on, please, so we can wrap this up.
Well,
but
it's not going to stop, dude. It's always going to be the same, and that's been a problem in comics for a while. Is it's been like editorially driven for the longest time, where they go, "Here's what we want you to do. All you got to do is just fill in, just color the numbers. Here's the numbers that we want when it comes down to what you got to write. Hit this point, hit this point, hit this point, hit this point. Go out there and maybe put in a couple of sprinkles in there of your own personality."
But the positive side about the Spidey stuff is that we do have Dan Slott writing Superior, and we have Ultimate Spider-Man. So it's not all a giant loss where it's like, oh, this is the only thing I have to read of Spider-Man right now. This sucks.
Yeah, there's a franchise, and there's more than just one book, and it's like the X-Men franchise. If you don't like one of the books, there's always other choices.
Right.
Exactly.
These mandates, and I think coming from this might be another thing that was, if I'm not mistaken, like MCU driven, Feige driven, was getting us out of Krakoa. Like it was going to happen, but I'm pretty sure that it was pushed. Editorial was pushed to do that because of the MCU.
I thought it was that Hickman wanted to end it early, and they just kept squeezing as much blood as they can out of that stone.
Hickman left.
There was a statement that came out that cleared some things up about Hickman in that run, and I forgot what it was. Somebody came out and spoke for Hickman. Hickman didn't say this, but somebody spoke for what happened on that run, because didn't he leave abruptly?
Kind of, yeah. I think he left after Inferno.
Okay.
He wrapped up one volume of X-Men, a little bit of New Mutants, and then he did the Inferno event, and then he was pieced out.
But man, all this stuff is pretty reminiscent from when the Ultimate Universe first came out, and that universe stuff was better than the 616 stuff.
I'm starting to see that again.
Yeah.
I haven't read the X-Men. The only thing I have not read is, well, no, I take it back. I did read the first issue of Peach Momoko's X-Men. I thought it was okay. I need to go back and read the rest of it. Black Panther, I thought was okay as well. I need to go back and read the rest of that again. But everything else has been really good so far.
I haven't read any of these yet, and at this point, I'm debating like, am I going to wind up picking everything up in trade or doing my typical and wait for hardcover? I don't know what I want to do just yet, but I am thinking about getting back into singles because I can afford it now, and buying the entire X line
of Krakoa, all that stuff.
No, the new Rise from the Ashes.
Yeah, from the Ashes line.
Oh, yeah. How many titles is it so far? 80? 75?
I think 10 to 12, if counting like miniseries along with it.
It's way too much, I think. But anyway, that's just me.
So on this interview here is with Jonathan White, who was the editor. Is it Jonathan White? Yeah, Jordan White, excuse me.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the interview, the editor also revealed that Marvel Comics scrapped plans for a book Hickman planned to write, revolving around Cannonball and Sunspot. With that disappointment added to an ever-growing list, it's no wonder he decided to walk away. Hickman had previously said a big part of why he left is that the publisher wasn't ready to move into the second arc of storytelling in the era. Instead, preferred to continue telling stories revolving around the X-Men's timeline on Krakoa. So he was trying to move it further, like he was trying to keep it pushing, and they just wanted to keep it going where it was and just kind of keep it stagnant because it was selling so well.
They keep fucking around. They're gonna have Hickman go to DC and write a JSA book,
or Legion of Superheroes or something.
I would pay killer money to see Hickman go write a JSA book. Oh my god,
dude, Hickman! I'll read almost anything Hickman does.
Yeah, a JSA book, man, that'd be great.
I'll read anything he does, dude. NFL do said it's 13 titles for the X-Men relaunch, where Astonishing was the core title.
Oh God,
I'm picking up X-Men just because they got. I like Ryan Stegman.
I do too.
And they got some awesome. I'm not a variant guy, but they got some variant covers of J. Scott Campbell doing issue 1 is Psylocke, issue 2 is Magic, and it's dope. It's dope. That magic cover is dope.
Okay.
And the second one's Rogue, so I'm in for that.
That core title of X-Men. When does this launch? August?
Next month, I believe.
Is it next month?
Yeah, I think it starts next month, and then but a lot of the titles start in August.
Okay, and it'll become way too cumbersome by December.
Good night, Minion.
Probably.
And I just won't be able to keep up with it by December. I'm just, oh God.
I mean, that's what happened with Krakoa. I was trying to keep up, and I was like, dude, they just keep adding more titles, and then X of Swords was 26 issues. I was like, dude, I'm done. I'm not doing a 26 issue story arc.
That was where a lot of people, either before or after, was where a lot of people hopped off at Krakoa. And it's funny because there was someone because Krakoa just ended like a week or two ago, like the last issue. And there was someone who came out saying something about how, because there was an article that was written by one of the big comic sites that was saying it was like a divisive era or whatever. And they were like, no, it wasn't. Like everyone loved. And I was like, you must have not been paying attention back when it first started. Because yes, there was a large amount of people that loved it. And I was amongst those. But there was definitely pretty quickly a point where people were just like, this is way too much. Mm-hmm. There's too many titles. And it was the fact that it went back to that 90s kind of mentality where you were made to feel like you needed to grab everything.
Yeah.
To understand what was going on. And so by the time you got to X of Swords, where it was the first big actual crossover with the books definitely crossing over with each other, even though they had been doing so for the previous year and a half, 2 years, that was a point where a lot of people either right before it or right afterwards had jumped off. And then it kept growing is the thing. It didn't shrink. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. And so it was divisive, even though some people like to consider that it wasn't.
Were you trying to keep up with it at the time? Because you've always been a huge X-Men guy.
I kept up until and this had nothing to do with the quality of I dropped literally everything at the same time because I didn't have the time. But I fell off right after X of Swords. So I haven't read probably 2/3 of Krakoa, and that's why now that we're going into this new era, I'm I can get back into singles now. I can afford to, both with money and time. I can afford to do it, and I'm I might as well just go all in, because if it's the only thing that I follow, then it's not that bad to pick up 12 books a month, I guess.
And here's the thing with this is that yes, it's comics, so it's going to happen inevitably. They're going to relaunch the whole line probably when the movies come out, right?
Oh yeah.
That's still a couple years out, though, probably.
It's I'm going to put 4 or 5 years, right? Yeah. 4 or 5 years, they're going to relaunch the whole line because it's going to line up with the movies and whatever it is they're going to be doing in the movies.
Until then, enjoy it. I mean, I'm hoping it's good.
Me too.
Because God, dude, that Hickman stuff with X-Men was game changer. That was some game changing stuff. Not just in terms of what they did with X-Men, but it brought people back into the X-Men that haven't read X-Men for years.
Yeah. There was a lot of good stuff when I was reading. Hellions was a really good title when I was reading that book. That kicked ass. Marauders was fun as well. There was good stuff in there.
I was enjoying all of that stuff. It just like what Riley said. He got to the point where it's you have to read everything. And I was like, oh, I don't want to have to read everything. I can read everything to a point, and then you start giving me more of everything. Like I'm stuffed. I'm already stuffed. I can't do more.
That was one of the things. That was one of the things I loved about Donny Cates' Venom run is you could read the whole thing, and you were good. You were fine. You didn't have to. Yes, there were tie-ins for the Carnage stuff and the big stuff, but it felt like it was a full, complete, singular run. And God damn it, I need to go back and read Donny Cates' Venom run because it's so good.
And I guess they were saying that they're coming out with like not like compendiums, but bigger like trade paperbacks of like the Krakoa age of stuff. So I might just read it like that because again, if you're trying to read everything of X-Men and there's like 30 titles and then like a mini series, you're gonna miss something. Like it's just gonna turn annoying where you're gonna end up missing something. Something's not gonna get pulled. Oh, I didn't know that this was a part of this. Those kinds of situations, and that just loses fun.
Yeah, it becomes work. It becomes work after a while.
There's so many random like one shots and miniseries and all that kind of stuff that it gets really easy to miss something.
Yeah,
it is so much, and it started feeling when I was doing my big read through of all the X-Men, I made it into the 90s, and that's where it was just like crossover, and I was like, this is a lot. Like it's a lot.
Our Extinction Agenda, Executioner's Song.
And then I just like went into the 2000s and I was like, whatever. I skipped over and I was like, I'll be back. I'll get that later. But also because a lot of it I didn't have like collected. So I didn't like reading scans, like really crappy scans online. And I was like, I'll come back to those later. And now is the later, I think, because all that stuff has been collected. So I'm good to do it now. Speaking of Donny Cates, though, y'all know he was originally the one that was going to head up the big Ultimate Universe relaunch. Unfortunately, but he had his accident and then literally lost the plot. And
now we got Hickman
over, which obviously good stuff coming from Hickman. I haven't read it, but I know that it's almost universally being praised. But just crazy that it could have been something very different.
I like NFL Dude's breakdown if you could.
Yeah, Hoxpox is 100. There was 12 issues. Dawn had 127 issues. Reign and Trials had 152 issues. Destiny had 190, and Fall of X had 27 issues. Way too much.
I was so I definitely read all of Dawn, and I think Reign started after X of Swords or 10 of Swords. And that's I didn't start any of the Reign of X stuff after that.
I just got lost with X of Swords, where it was just like, oh, this is so much. It's going through every title. There's more titles. There's one shots involved. I don't know what's going on.
Do you really need 18, however many titles of X-Men? Because you could probably, you want your main X-Men line, right? You're gonna want that. You're gonna want X-Men, Uncanny X-Men.
Wolverine.
You're going to want a single Wolverine. You're going to want a Deadpool. X-Force?
X-Force, X-Factor, maybe, at the most.
The thing that was impressive to me in what I did read of the Krakoa era was each title definitely stood on its own as something different than the rest of them. Like, none of them really felt like they were double dipping into a certain topic. And that's... most of the titles now going into From the Ashes seem the same way, except it is a little bit odd to have like 3 X-Men. It's was it exceptional, uncanny, and adjectiveless. That seems a little much, but we do have all the other ones that y'all mentioned, except also add to that a Storm title. Dazzler has a mini series. It's just a mini series, so whatever. And there's NYX is coming back, and it's I think focused on Laura and another few young like mutants.
So here we go. We got X-Men, Phoenix, NYX, X-Force. I don't know why Avengers is on here.
Storm is joining the team with issue 17, so they're tying in everything.
Uncanny X-Men, X Factor, Exceptional X-Men, Wolverine, and Storm.
See, I-
We finally got the writer and artist for Storm. That's been released. I don't know who these people are, but
Saladin Ahmed is writing Wolverine.
yeah.
Yeah.
If mediocrity was a name, that would be it.
Uh,
No, I don't hate Saladin Ahmed. Actually, I'm joking. No, I think Saladin Ahmed's problem for me is that a lot of his stuff starts out great and then teeters off really quick into, well, this was okay for me.
We got Mark Russell on X Factor. That's going to be fun.
That's gonna be a standout.
that X Factor looks pretty cool.
That's probably gonna be a standout. What else?
I like to see Gail Simone and what she can do with X-Men coming back. You know.
Yeah, that's going to
yeah.
be fun.
Yeah, so far the ones that got me the most interested are definitely that X-Men by Jed McKay and Ryan Stegman. That's an easy buy just for Ryan Stegman's art. Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men and Mark Russell's X Factor. Those are probably the only ones that I keep up with. And then the other ones will be, well, if I hear anything.
Why can't this Wolverine be Hickman? Right.
There is the
Capullo one
series.
Yeah. I'm so pumped for that miniseries, dude. That thing
me too.
I cannot wait to see what happens with that.
But the rest of these titles, I don't know. I'll wait and see.
Yeah. Well, you know where you can find those titles once they get collected? There's one true spot, everybody. InStockTrades.com, the sponsor of Omnibros Live, where you can get the best discounts on all your collected editions, hardcovers, trade paperbacks, omnibuses, and you know what? Mangas as well. Super discounts. 35% off, 45% off, 50%. If you look at the red tag sale, you're going to get 60, 70, probably even more discounts from there. Free shipping in the United States on orders of $50 or more. You get a 2% loyalty discount on your next order. Awesome customer service, best packaging. InStockTrades.com, our go-to #1 spot for all of our trade paperback omnibuses and collected edition needs. So you guys should check it out too. All right. You guys want to keep going? How are you feeling? I'm ready to dip if you guys are. It's
I'm getting tired.
6:40 here. I'm hungry. All right. All right, guys. So thanks again for everybody for showing up here. All the people in the chat were awesome. We had a great conversation. We're hanging out today. Lou, any final words?
Yeah, just hug your loved ones tonight. That's all I'm gonna say. Call them, text them, hug your loved ones, and have a good night.
Riley, what's your final words for today?
It's okay if you don't want to celebrate Father's Day.
Okay.
Nobody cares about Father's Day. It's like the most underappreciated holiday. Like Secretary's Day, Arbor Day, Toe Jam Day gets more love than Father's
Leap year.
Yeah.
There's like so much everywhere about like, oh, it's Mother's Day, Mother's Day, Mother's Day. And then for Father's Day, they're just like,
hey, everybody, let's go out and go eat and go all do fancy stuff for mom. Gotta get mom a nice gift. Dad, can you just go clean the garage or something? Like,
No, I will say I'm very fortunate that my wife really cares about Father's Day and she does celebrate it and she's really cool about it with me. So I'm like, oh, thanks. It's nice to be appreciated.
yeah. No, my wife's like, you want to do something or anything? I'm like, maybe I'll go dig through some comic books at a comic book store or something. Like, I don't.
Gabe is just leave me alone. Let me do my own thing for about 6 hours and I'll come home.
Yeah.
we're just going like to breakfast. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what my wife has planned. She's already given me several things for Father's Day. I'm like, already? She couldn't wait. We're very impatient in this household when it comes to giving gifts. So who knows? We'll probably go out to dinner or something like that night. I appreciate her. So I'm very fortunate.
All right, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
We're out of here.
bye.